I spent 7 years building my dream, and it took 7 seconds to realize my family was still my nightmare. Denver, Colorado. December cold bit into my skin as I stood on the front porch of the first house I ever owned. It was small, modest even, but it was mine. Bought with long nights of overtime, skipped vacations, canceled dinners, and saying no to just about every indulgence you can imagine. It wasn't just a house. It was a symbol that I had finally made it. I'm Jacob Walker, 29 years old, software engineer. Quiet, observant, the one in the family who never got the joke. My older brother, Tyler, 32, the life of every party but never knew when to stop. My younger sister, Megan, 27, sarcastic, popular on TikTok for her pranks. My family never understood boundaries, and I never spoke up, until now. I invited them all over to celebrate. A housewarming dinner. I thought maybe, just maybe, this time would be different. Mom brought my favorite childhood dessert. Tyler and Megan were unusually warm, complimenting the kitchen, asking thoughtful questions. I let my guard down. That was my first mistake. As we moved to dessert, Tyler pulled out a white envelope and handed it to me. "A little housewarming gift from us," he said with a smirk. I smiled back, naive enough to believe they'd changed. I opened the envelope. It was a printed letter from what looked like the county clerk's office. "Dear Mr. Walker, due to a clerical error, the sale of the property at address has been deemed invalid. Ownership is being transferred to another party." My hands went cold. My heart dropped. I stared at the paper in disbelief. Every detail was accurate. The address, my name, the file number. And then, "Gotcha!" Tyler shouted, bursting into laughter. Megan had her phone out, recording the whole thing. They both doubled over, unable to contain themselves. Mom chuckled too. I started to cry. They laughed even harder. I stood up silently, walked out of the dining room. "Jacob, come on, honey, it was just a joke," Mom called after me. "Dude, lighten up. This one's gonna go viral," Tyler said between wheezes. I didn't say a word. I just grabbed my coat and walked out. For the first time, I wasn't running away. I was leaving. Back at my house, I locked the door, turned off my phone, blocked everyone. Mom, Tyler, Megan. No calls, no texts, no social media. I didn't make a scene. I didn't start a fight, but I made a decision. They don't get to laugh at my life anymore. Not now, not ever again. They thought that because I stayed quiet, I didn't feel the pain. But I remember everything, every joke, every humiliation. I went back to my old apartment, the place I lived for 7 years. Simple, quiet, dimly lit. I opened my old laptop and scrolled through family videos. Moments that once looked like warm memories now reeked of mockery. What I used to call family fun now played like a highlight reel of emotional abuse. Me as a 15-year-old boy, nervously holding a birthday cake while Tyler shoved frosting into my face in front of my friends. Megan recorded it and posted it online with the caption, "Birthday boy got destroyed." 200,000 views, 800 comments mocking me. That was the first time I realized that in my family, I was the punchline. No one ever apologized. Whenever I got upset, they said I was too sensitive. Tyler once told me, "It's not like we hit you or anything." That was his defense when he spilled coffee on my interview suit, 30 minutes before the biggest job meeting of my life. I remembered the time they pretended my dog was missing. I ran through the neighborhood, crying, putting up flyers, shouting his name. When I came home in tears, Megan uploaded the video. He actually believed it. And still, I thought, maybe if I worked hard enough, became successful enough, they'd stop. Maybe they'd respect me. But they didn't. Because they never changed. And the truth is, I had. A friend messaged me. "Dude, you're trending on Reddit." Tyler had uploaded a video titled, "My little bro thought he lost his house LMAO." It had over 1 million views, thousands of strangers laughing at my breakdown, at my most vulnerable moment. And it hit me. This wasn't just a prank anymore. This was public degradation. I deleted all my social media. I changed my number. I disconnected from every mutual friend. I wasn't hiding. I was reclaiming my space. Then I typed into Google, emotional abuse from family, how to heal. I didn't find a magic solution, but I found a starting point. I opened a blank document and typed the first sentence. I wasn't born to be anyone's punching bag. I didn't know where the story would go yet, but I knew this. I wouldn't live in silence anymore. They thought my silence meant I wouldn't fight back. They were wrong. And this time, I had proof. 3 days later, I had just finished a late shift and pulled into my driveway under the cold, quiet dark of a Denver winter night. The porch light was on. Everything looked calm. I thought the storm had passed. I thought the silence meant peace. I was wrong. There was a loud knock at my front door, near midnight. Tyler and Megan, my brother and sister. Once again at my doorstep, but not to apologize. They had their phones out, live streaming themselves, shouting, "Come on, Jacob! Everyone's waiting for your face!" They weren't here to talk. They were here to make content, again. I had cut all ties, blocked every number, shut every door. I gave them no reason to come back, but they did. And a few hours later, I discovered that my car had been egged. I didn't need a private investigator. My security camera caught it all. Tyler and Megan, laughing like schoolyard bullies, vandalizing my property in the middle of the night. I sat down and watched the footage again, frame by frame. Not because I needed proof, but because I needed to feel the weight of what they did. Coldly, unapologetically. I created a new folder on my hard drive. Evidence. I saved the footage, took still images, compiled text messages, voicemails, screenshots of Megan's latest Instagram post. My lil bro throwing a tantrum like he lost his Barbie doll. The next morning, I put on my coat, grabbed a flash drive, and drove to the local police station. I sat with an officer and told him everything. Every prank, every escalation, every boundary crossed. He watched the video. Then he looked at me and said, "This isn't a family issue anymore. This is harassment and destruction of property." He filed a report, took my statement, and for the first time, I didn't feel like a victim. I felt like someone taking control. That evening, I received an official email from the precinct. The individuals in question have been issued a warning and instructed to stay at least 200 feet away from your residence. It wasn't a restraining order, yet, but it was a start. I exhaled. That night, I slept deeply for the first time in weeks. The next morning, I went for a walk around my neighborhood. The air was still cold, but for the first time, I didn't feel the chill in my bones. The silence wasn't menacing anymore. It was earned. I wasn't alone in this fight. The law was on my side now, and more importantly, so was I. Some people only stop when they're forced to pay the price. And there are lines. Once crossed, there's no way back. A week had passed since the police issued the warning. I started to settle back into a routine. Work, morning jogs, evenings with a book. For the first time in years, I felt like I had my life to myself. But peace doesn't grow overnight. I still woke up at random noises, still flinched when my doorbell rang. Then, one night, around 3 a.m., I heard rustling outside my window. At first, I couldn't see anyone, but by morning, it was obvious. My front yard was covered in toilet paper, my car smeared with shaving cream. I checked the security footage, and there they were. Tyler and Megan, dressed in black, baseball caps pulled low, giggling like they were filming a dumb prank for TikTok. I didn't get angry. I didn't panic. I felt cold. Cold like the air outside. Cold like what was left of their hearts. They had ignored the police warning. That wasn't just stupid. It was criminal. They still believed I wouldn't go any further, that I would let it go like I always did. They didn't know that this time, I was ready to end it for good. I downloaded every second of the footage, logged the time, captured every frame. I contacted a lawyer who specialized in harassment and family protection orders. We built a case, videos, photos, police reports, message logs. She looked over the documents and said, "You have more than enough. It's time to let the law speak for you." Court day. I wore a white shirt, no tie, just clarity. I stood before the judge and told my story. calmly, but without sugarcoating a thing. From the fake eviction letter, to the eggs, to the shaving cream at 3 a.m. I laid it all out. I submitted everything. The judge reviewed the files, then looked at me. This court grants a full restraining order. The defendants are prohibited from approaching Mr. Walker's residence, workplace, or any public event where he is present. The order is valid for 2 years. I didn't cry, but something inside me broke free. Days later, I heard through a mutual contact that police had personally delivered the order to Tyler and Megan. This time, there were no jokes, no camera, just silence. Megan tried texting me from a new number. "You're being so petty, Jacob." I blocked it without responding. Silence this time was a boundary, not a weakness. That night, I sat on my porch with a cup of hot tea. No yelling, no knocking, no threats. Only quiet. But this wasn't the kind of quiet that used to terrify me. It was earned. It was mine. I knew the war might not be over. But from that moment on, I also knew this. I could stand. I could protect myself, and I had drawn my final line. I thought that once the noise stopped, I'd finally get some rest. But memories, they know how to knock too. A month had passed since the restraining order took effect. No more eggs, no more live streams, no more shadows outside my window. For the first time in years, I could come home from work without checking my rearview mirror. For the first time, I could sleep through the night. But silence doesn't always mean peace. Sometimes, it's just a pause between echoes. I had become a different version of myself. Not broken, not fearful, but scarred in ways no one could see. I hesitated before answering unknown numbers. Loud laughter made my heart race. Sometimes, I still heard Tyler's voice in my head, mocking. The world had gone quiet, but inside me the noise hadn't stopped. I started seeing a therapist, not because I was weak, because I was finally strong enough to face the truth. She asked me during the first session, "What hurt you the most?" And without thinking, I said, "It wasn't the jokes. It was realizing they actually believed I deserved them." I began journaling every night, not to complain, but to understand myself. Then I started writing anonymously online. A small blog, nothing fancy. I shared my story, one entry at a time. The posts were clumsy at first, scattered like broken thoughts. Then one day, a message came in. "Your story gave me the courage to leave my stepfather. Aaron." I reread that sentence 5 times, and something in me shifted. My pain wasn't pointless anymore. It had become someone else's permission to heal. One afternoon, I got an email invite to be a guest on a podcast called Healing After Harm, a show where survivors of toxic family dynamics shared their stories. I hesitated, telling my story with my real name, my real voice. Was I ready to go that far? I called my therapist. She said, "Telling your story isn't about reliving the past, it's about releasing it." So I said yes. The recording day came. I sat behind a mic and told it all, from the birthday cake to the fake letter, to the court order. At the end, the host asked me, "If you could say one thing to your younger self, what would it be?" I paused, then said, "You're not wrong. You're not too sensitive. You deserve respect. And one day you'll rise. Not to prove anything. Just to finally breathe." We sat in silence, but this time, it felt like healing. The episode went live. My inbox exploded, not with hate, but with gratitude. "You helped me name what I've been feeling for years. I thought I was alone. Your voice became mine." That night I stepped out onto my balcony. The wind was soft. I looked up at the stars. I wasn't afraid of memories anymore, because I had turned them into something bigger than pain. My voice. They used laughter to silence my voice for nearly 3 decades. But now, I don't need them to hear me. The world is listening. 3 weeks after the podcast episode aired, my inbox was overflowing. Not with spam, but with real messages. Real people. People who'd been hurt by their own families. Your story is mine. I don't feel crazy anymore. Finally, someone said what I've never had the words for. Each message felt like a breath of fresh air through a room I didn't realize had grown so suffocating. One email stood out. It was from Emily Cross, founder of Echoing Light, a platform that empowers survivors of familial trauma. She had lived through abuse herself. Now she led the national movement Silence Ends With Us. She wrote, "I believe your voice needs a larger space. I'd love to invite you to join our truth-telling series." I stared at her words. My hands trembled, not out of fear, out of knowing this moment mattered. I had never spoken on a stage before, let alone about something so personal. Could I really do this? Stand under bright lights and undress my pain publicly? But then I remembered the emails. The people who said my words gave them courage. If I stayed silent, who else might remain stuck in the dark? So I asked myself, was I afraid of being seen, or was I afraid of being heard? The event was in Chicago, hosted at a community center packed with over 300 people and live-streamed across the country. Emily introduced me as a man who reclaimed his narrative. I walked onto the stage, heart pounding but hands steady. I wasn't speaking to a crowd. I was speaking to the younger version of myself, and every version of someone else who needed to hear that they weren't crazy, dramatic, or broken, just hurt and healing. At the end of my story, a woman stood up and asked, "Do you still talk to them?" I took a breath and replied, "No, I don't hate them, but I don't need them to know my worth." The room went silent for a moment. Then, applause broke out, not loud, but sincere. It wasn't for drama, it was for truth. Spoken, heard, received. After the talk, a young man approached me. He was shaking, tears in his eyes. "I cut off contact with my dad last week. I felt so guilty. But hearing you made me realize I'm not betraying anyone. I'm just finally choosing myself." I nodded. I remembered that guilt, that shame, and I knew he had just taken his first step out of the fog. That night, back at my hotel, I looked in the mirror. No shadows, no ghosts, just me. I opened my notebook and wrote, "The truth didn't cost me anyone who truly loved me. It only made space for those who actually see me." I'm no longer writing to heal. I'm writing to remind people they're not alone. I'm not just a survivor. I'm a storyteller now, and I've chosen to speak. I used to believe blood was unbreakable, but some bonds, the longer you hold on to them, the more they drain who you are. Thanksgiving. My first one after the restraining order. In all my 28 years, I had never skipped a family Thanksgiving, even if I dreaded the teasing, even if I sat there pretending to laugh along. But this year, I sat alone. No turkey, no fake smiles, just me, a simple meal, and a warm kitchen filled with quiet, the kind that didn't feel like danger. I thought about the only person in my family who ever saw me, my grandmother. She wasn't loud or confrontational. But when I came home crying at 13 after Tyler humiliated me in front of his friends, she held my hand and said, "You don't have to make people laugh to be loved." She passed years ago, but her words live inside me like a lantern I carry in dark places. That night I received a voicemail from my mom, sent from an unknown number. She was crying. "Honey, please, everyone misses you. Don't be so stubborn. They were just joking. I made your favorite dish." My chest tightened, not from longing, but from recognition. They still didn't get it. My silence wasn't punishment. It was protection. I picked up my phone, hovered over the reply button. Then I put it down. I knew how the cycle worked. Guilt, promises, more pain. Just then, a new message lit up my inbox. It was from Emily. "Jacob, we're hosting a small healing retreat in Seattle. Would you like to join us?" Without hesitation, I typed, "Yes, I'll be there." The retreat was intimate, just 50 people. I didn't say much at first, just listened. Each person shared a chapter from a life that sounded like mine in different fonts, Manipulation, gaslighting, emotional silence. A woman in her 60s broke down as she admitted she'd finally gone no contact with her sister after 40 years. "I feel like I betrayed my family," she whispered. I looked at her and gently said, "No, you protected yourself. That's not betrayal. That's bravery." After the session, a few of us stayed for dinner. We laughed, not because we had to, but because it came naturally. No performance, no judgment. One woman leaned over and said, "Your story gave me the strength to walk away from my mother's control." I didn't know what to say, so I just smiled. And in that moment, I felt whole. That night, back home, it rained gently against my window. I curled up on the sofa and opened a leather notebook. On the first page, my grandmother's faded handwriting. "You define your own worth." I closed my eyes. I finally believed it. Family isn't made of blood. It's made of people who don't ask you to shrink to fit their comfort. Family is built with love, not fear, and I'd finally found mine. I used to be the name behind viral humiliation clips. Now, I write my own script, with the voice they tried to silence. A year had passed since I cut ties for good. My house looked different now. Photos on the walls, a new cactus I water every morning, shelves filled with books on healing and boundaries. I'd received media invitations, podcast requests, and one big thing I never expected: a nearly finished manuscript. The title, "I Don't Belong to That Family Anymore." I'm Jacob Walker, still a software engineer, but also now a writer, a speaker, and, perhaps most importantly, a survivor who speaks. Every time I get on stage or open my laptop to write, I'm not just telling my story. I'm speaking to the boy I used to be, and to everyone else still trapped in silence. One morning I received a publishing offer from a major house, but they had a condition. "We want to promote this with your real name, your real face, publicly." I froze. Not out of fear of my siblings, but because I knew this meant full visibility, full vulnerability. There would be no turning back. I reread every chapter, from the first prank to the restraining order, from the tears to the triumph. I remembered what my grandmother once told me. "You don't need to shout to be heard. Just speak your truth." And so I typed my response to the publisher. "Use my real name, use my photo. This is my truth. I'm done hiding." The book launched. It hit a bestseller list in the first week. I was invited to a signing event in Denver, the very city where I used to be the family's joke. As I walked into the bookstore, people clapped. A woman approached me with a crumpled printout of Chapter 3, tears in her eyes. "My daughter read this chapter and finally told us she was being abused. Thank you." I couldn't speak, so I just placed my hand over my heart and nodded. The next day, a letter arrived in the mail. Handwritten, from my mother. She wrote, "You probably think I don't understand, but I read the entire book. And you're right. I didn't protect you. I'm sorry. Not because I expect forgiveness, but because I finally listened." I didn't cry. I didn't reply. But something inside me settled. Some acknowledgments don't need answers. They just need to exist. That night, I sat in my car and played the song my grandmother used to hum in the kitchen. For years, I couldn't bear to hear it. It hurt too much. But that night, I smiled. I wasn't afraid of the past anymore. I didn't need anyone to validate me. I had done that for myself. I'm Jacob Walker, and I didn't just survive. I became me.